There is a hierarchy of power inside one of the most battle-tested militaries on the planet, and almost nobody outside of Israel actually understands how it works. Every stripe, every insignia, and every title inside the Israel Defense Forces carries a story of survival, discipline, and decades of hard-earned combat experience. While most people can name a general or a colonel, very few understand how a teenage recruit climbs through a system that has been refined through conflict after conflict across difficult and unpredictable terrain. Today, we are going to break down the entire structure of Israeli military ranks, from the newest recruit standing at attention for the very first time, all the way up to the single officer who commands the entire armed forces of a nation that has faced ongoing security challenges since its founding. By the end of this video, you will understand not just the titles, but the reasoning behind them, and why this ranking system has become a model studied by militaries around the world. After the last section, add a call to action, but before we get there, we need to understand why the Israel Defense Forces built their ranking system the way they did in the first place. Unlike many militaries that trace their structures back centuries, the IDF was formed almost overnight, out of necessity rather than tradition. This meant that Israel had the rare opportunity to design a rank system from scratch, one that prioritized function over formality and combat effectiveness over ceremonial hierarchy. The result is a structure that feels leaner and more egalitarian than most global militaries, yet is still capable of commanding hundreds of thousands of soldiers across land, air, sea, and increasingly cyberspace. Understanding this foundation is essential because every rank we discuss today exists for a specific operational reason, shaped by decades of continuous security demands and the constant need to move quickly from civilian life into active duty and back again. Every soldier in Israel begins their journey at the same starting line, regardless of background, wealth, or family connections, because national service is mandatory for most Israeli citizens. A new recruit enters as a Tarai, the equivalent of a private, and this is where the physical and psychological transformation begins. Within this entry tier, soldiers can progress to Tarai Rishon, or private first class, based on performance, discipline, and time served. What makes this system distinct is the speed at which promotion can occur during heightened conflict periods versus quieter times, since the IDF has historically needed to expand its command structure rapidly whenever active operations intensify. These early ranks are not just administrative labels, they represent a soldier's first real test of leadership potential, and many future officers are identified and tracked into specialized training programs based on how they perform during these foundational months of service. Above the entry-level ranks sits a tier of leadership that many outsiders overlook, yet this group forms the true operational backbone of the entire military. The Samal, or sergeant, along with the Samal Rishon, or staff sergeant, are the soldiers who translate strategic orders from officers into real, executable action on the ground. These non-commissioned officers are often the most experienced individuals in any given unit, having spent years mastering the technical and tactical realities of their specific role. Above them stands the Rav Samal Rishon, or Master Sergeant, and eventually the Rav Nagad, a senior enlisted advisor role that exists to bridge the gap between the enlisted soldiers and the commissioned officer corps. This layer of command is where raw experience and battlefield wisdom accumulate most heavily, and it is often these individuals, rather than the officers above them, who new recruits look to first when they need guidance during moments of genuine crisis. The transition from enlisted ranks into the officer corps represents one of the most significant transformations within the Israeli military system, and it begins with the rank of Sejan Mission, equivalent to a second lieutenant. This is typically the first rank awarded to graduates of Officer Training School, one of the most demanding leadership programs within the entire IDF structure. From there, soldiers progress to Sejan, or lieutenant, a rank that usually comes with direct command of a platoon-sized unit during active operations. What separates Israeli officer progression from many other systems is the emphasis on frontline leadership before administrative advancement, meaning officers are expected to lead from the front during their early years rather than immediately moving into staff or planning roles. This philosophy has deep roots in Israeli military culture, reflecting the belief that effective commanders must first prove themselves through direct operational experience before they are trusted with larger strategic responsibilities. Once an officer reaches the rank of Saran, equivalent to captain, their responsibilities expand dramatically, often placing them in command of an entire company of soldiers rather than a single platoon. This is typically the rank where career officers begin to specialize, choosing pathways into infantry command, intelligence operations, armored divisions, or increasingly, cyber and technological warfare units. The next tier, Ravsaran or Major, usually accompanies a shift toward battalion-level staff positions, where officers begin balancing tactical fieldwork with broader strategic planning responsibilities. It is at this stage that many Israeli officers pursue additional academic education, often through partnerships with universities, since the IDF places significant value on combining military expertise with civilian intellectual development. This blending of operational experience and formal education is part of what has made Israeli senior officers particularly effective when transitioning into defense technology and private sector innovation later in their careers. As officers climb toward Sgan Aleph or Lieutenant Colonel, and eventually Aleph mission, equivalent to a full colonel, their responsibilities shift almost entirely away from direct combat and toward large-scale operational command. A colonel in the Israeli military might oversee an entire brigade, coordinating thousands of soldiers across multiple specialized units, while also managing logistics, intelligence integration, and coordination with allied forces during joint operations. These senior officers are typically the ones briefing government officials, testifying before defense committees, and representing the military in diplomatic and strategic discussions with international partners. Reaching this level of command usually requires close to 2 decades of continuous service, along with a proven track record of successful leadership during actual operational deployments. It is also at this stage where officers begin to specialize even further, with some moving toward pure military strategy while others transition into research, weapons development, or intelligence analysis roles within Israel's broader defense ecosystem. At the highest levels of the Israeli military hierarchy sit the general officers, beginning with Tat Aleph or Brigadier General, followed by Aleph or Major General, positions that place individuals in command of entire divisions or specialized branches of the armed forces. These officers are responsible for shaping long-term military strategy, overseeing massive budgets, and making decisions that directly influence national security policy at the highest levels of government. Unlike many systems where general officers primarily handle administrative duties, Israeli generals often maintain surprisingly close involvement with active operations, a reflection of the country's ongoing security demands and its relatively small yet highly professionalized officer corps. Many of Israel's most influential political and business leaders emerged from these general officer ranks, carrying their military discipline and strategic thinking directly into civilian leadership roles after retirement, which explains why military service remains such a central pathway to influence within Israeli society. At the very top of the entire Israeli military structure sits a single individual holding the rank of Rav Aleph, a title reserved exclusively for the Chief of the General Staff, the highest-ranking officer in the entire Israel Defense Forces. This individual answers directly to the Minister of Defense and, ultimately, to the Prime Minister and government cabinet, making the Chief of Staff one of the most powerful and closely watched figures in Israeli public life. The responsibilities of this position extend far beyond operational strategy, encompassing everything from budget allocation and technological procurement to diplomatic coordination with allied nations. Because Israel operates in a near-constant state of heightened security alertness, decisions made by the Chief of Staff can have immediate and far-reaching consequences, not just for military operations but for broader regional stability, making this position one of extraordinary weight and responsibility. When compared to other major military powers, the Israeli rank structure stands out for its relative simplicity and its strong emphasis on merit-based advancement over seniority alone. Many other militaries maintain far more elaborate rank tiers, along with rigid separations between officer and enlisted career tracks, whereas the IDF has historically allowed for more fluid movement based on demonstrated leadership capability. This structural efficiency has been closely studied by military analysts worldwide, particularly as Israel has developed a reputation for producing highly capable junior officers who take on significant responsibility earlier in their careers compared to their counterparts elsewhere. Additionally, because nearly all Israeli citizens serve in some capacity, the military rank system carries social weight that extends well beyond active duty, influencing career opportunities, business networks, and even political trajectories throughout an individual's entire civilian life, long after their formal service has ended. As Israel continues investing heavily in artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and autonomous defense systems, the traditional rank structure is beginning to evolve alongside these technological shifts, with new specialized command tracks emerging for officers overseeing digital and space-based operations. The IDF's ongoing modernization plan reflects this transition, emphasizing advanced technology integration while still preserving the core hierarchical values that have defined Israeli military culture since its founding. Younger officers today are increasingly expected to combine traditional leadership skills with technical fluency in areas like drone warfare, satellite intelligence, and cyber defense, creating a new generation of commanders unlike any that came before them. This evolution demonstrates that while the titles themselves may remain rooted in decades of tradition, the actual responsibilities attached to each rank continue shifting to match the realities of modern warfare, ensuring that Israel's military hierarchy remains as adaptive as the challenges it was built to face. If this breakdown helped you finally understand how the Israeli military ranking system actually works, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next deep dive into global military structures. Drop a comment below telling us which country's military hierarchy you want us to break down next, because your suggestions genuinely shape what we cover on this channel. And if you found even one fact in this video surprising, do us a favor and hit that like button, since it directly helps this content reach more curious minds just like yours. We will see you in the next one.